Alright, today we're going to be solving quadratic equations by graphing. So to solve a quadratic equation, the first thing we're going to do is write it in standard form, which means that I have all of my variables and all of my constant terms over to one side. This also means that on one side I'm going to have a 0 on my equal sign. So then after I get it in standard form, move everything over to one side. I'm going to rewrite with a y instead of a 0. So instead of having that 0 on the other side, I'm going to replace it with a y. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch the graph, and wherever my line crosses my x-axis is going to be my solutions to the equation. So for this first one, first thing I'm going to do is move everything over to the other side, so I'm going to subtract a 2 from both sides. On the left-hand side, I'll get x squared minus x minus 2. Since none of those are like terms, I can't combine anything together. Then I'm going to change that 0 to a y, so I have an input and an output, and I can graph this thing. So my a value is 1, my b value is negative 1. So when I do negative b over 2a, I have negative 1, which is the same thing as positive 1. And I'm dividing that by 2 times 1, which is 2. So my vertex happens at 1/2, or 0.5. Two numbers smaller are 0 and negative 1, and then 1 and 2 are numbers that are bigger than. So I've gotten, these should be negative 2, negative 1 should be 0, 2 should be 0, 1/2 should be negative 2.5. So when I graph this, should get negative 1, 0, 0, negative 2, 1/2, negative 2. Actually, that should be 2.25. 1, negative 2, and then 2, 0. So my parabola looks something like this. And then all I have to do is, just like this said, wherever my graph crosses my x-axis, which is my horizontal axis, those are my two solutions. So all I have to do is write my x is equal to negative 1, and x is also equal to positive 2. Those are my two solutions to the equation. X is equal to negative 1, or x is equal to negative 2, or positive 2. So when I go to this one's a little more difficult. So I have x squared plus x. I'm going to make this x squared plus x minus 6, because I'll subtract the 6 to the other side, is equal to y, so I'll graph that. My vertex happens at negative 0.5, negative 1 and negative 2, and then 0 and positive 1. So I should get negative 6, negative 6, negative 6.25. Then this is negative 4. So again, when I graph these, negative 2, negative 4, negative 1, negative 6, negative half, negative 6.25, and then symmetrical through. And so here the problem is that my points don't actually line up so that they're crossing the x-axis. And so if I would draw my parabola, I would be guessing where it crosses my x-axis at. So what we're going to do is go ahead and plug in one more point on each side. So I'm going to do 2 and negative 3, and when I plug in each of those, I get 0. So then I can include those points when I plot these, like that, and then go ahead and connect my dots, like that. So it crosses my axis at these 2 points, so x is equal to 2, and x is equal to negative 3. And this last one, if you get a question like this, where if I multiply a number by 6 more than that number, and I get 7 as an answer, what's the number I started with? So if I multiply a number is x by 6 more than that number, so 6 more than that number would be x plus 6. So when I multiply these guys together, I get x times x plus 6 is equal to 7. Distribute my x, so I get x squared plus 6x equals 7. Oops. And then move the 7 to the other side, so I get x squared plus 6x minus 7 is equal to y. Then I can graph that and find out where it crosses my x-axis, and those will be my solutions for this problem. And there are the 2 problems for homework. Make sure we graph and also then decide where our solutions happen at.